My name's Pamela Macrocosta, and I've always lived here in Weirton, and I work at the Mary H. Weir Public Library, and I do a Greek radio program every Sunday. Greek's my first language, although I was born here. My father's name was Nick Anthony Macrocosta, and he was from the island of Chios. He was a chef from when he was a youngster, so he started working when he was 7 or 8, and he was the only boy. He had 6 sisters and his parents, and he had to go to work. So technically he started work very early, but he counted the age of 13 as his big job. He became a cook. And my mother was Helen Kukulis Macrocosta, and she was born in Weirton. And then my brother Tony and I learned from both of them. So everybody cooked at the house and baked, the traditional foods and the pastries. My grandfather was a confectioner, so he made the Greek pastries and the candies and the cookies. My grandfather, in addition to being a confectioner, he also was a barber. My grandmother was a writer and a teacher. She taught French. My mother's uncle lived with us. He was very strict. He demanded that it was just Greek food. If we wanted to have like fried bologna sandwich or peanut butter jelly sandwich or chili or anything that wasn't Greek, we had to go next door to our next door neighbors, the Carnahans. We had a big garden at our home, so we had a lot of very fresh vegetables, tomatoes, potatoes, different kinds of squash, corn, eggplant, green beans, fava beans, all kinds of lettuce, all kinds of spinach, onions, garlic. We had our own arbor, and my mother's uncle made wine every year from our grapes. We had fig trees, so we had fresh figs. We had apples and pears and nectarine trees, and then we would can. I told you that they used to make the wine. So when they would squeeze the grapes, what was left, the harder material, the outside of the grape and the pulp on the inside, they would make that into a grape pudding. And it was delicious. Probably my favorite thing was lamb. We didn't always have lamb, but, lamb was something special for Easter and Christmas. Our house was always an open house, so everybody was welcome to come, and we always had people there. In fact, from my grandmother's side of the family, their tradition was to always have an extra place setting for people. So that, say there were 6 people in your family, you would always set the table for 7 in case somebody came. Some of the recipes from the family are written down. The rest of them, they just taught us by just, having us watch them, how they made them. And they would use a cup or a glass or a handful or a pinch, but the Easter bread, for example, on the island of Chios, where my dad's from, they would always use machlepi. It's a certain spice. That was the only spice that they used. But where my mom's family's from, they would use allspice. They would take the peppers out of the allspice can, and they would put it in a cheesecloth, and they would boil it, and then use that water instead of just regular water. So it was delicious. Now, we make a certain bread for church, too. It's called prosphoro. It's our gift, for communion. And that bread was something that, they had a recipe, and we would follow the recipe. But it's basically just the flour, the water, and the yeast, and a little bit of salt. So that was the plain bread. Some of the recipes are in my grandmother's journal that she kept from Asia Minor. My father had written some of the recipes down when he was a cook, but all those years cooking, he knew them. He didn't have to follow a recipe. Some of them are very old. Some of them are, passed down. It was interesting in my grandmother's journal. She would say, for example, a certain cookie, finikia, okay, and she would put who she got the recipe from, or if you were the one that had made this a certain way, she would put skuluraka, So it's come down to us with the name of the person that originally had given the recipe. And the other thing that they made, and my grandfather and my dad made them, they're called lukumades. They're called honey puffs. If you've been to Greek festivals, you'll see them. They look like donut holes. And they put honey on top and cinnamon and nuts. There's also another recipe. It's called Saint Fanurios cake. Saint Fanurios is one of those saints. When somebody loses something, they go, "Oh, Saint Fanurios, help me find this or that," And then what you're supposed to do is bake this certain kind of cake, and then you distribute it to people. And you find what you're looking for. I always find what I'm looking for.